Okay, so it is 5:35. So it is 5:35. Okay, so on behalf of Institute for Science and Spirituality, I Jyotishwar Das, I welcome all the participants once again to today's seminar. Today's title is Science and Spirituality in Bhagavad Gita. So usually we know Bhagavad Gita is a spiritual text, but it has a lot of content to tell about material world also, this empirical reality also. So today we are very fortunate. We have with us Professor Laxmidhar Behera. So he will be talking on these aspects today, sharing with you. So just a brief introduction of Professor Behera. So Professor Laxmidhar Behera is a professor at IIT Kanpur, and he has been teaching over there, and he has a lot of research experience for more than 23 years. So he has received his BSc in engineering and MSc in engineering degrees from NIT Raulkela in 1988 and 1990 respectively. So he received his PhD degree from IIT Delhi in 1996. He pursued the postdoctoral studies in the German National Research Center for Information Technology, GMD, St. Augustine, Germany during 2000-2001. Previously, he has worked as an assistant professor at BITS Pilani during 1995 to 1999, and as a reader at Intelligent Systems Research Center, ISRC, at University of Ulster, United Kingdom, from 2007 to 2009. Later on, he has also worked as a visiting researcher professor at FSG Germany, ETS Zurich, Switzerland, and he is one of the pioneers in the field of AI-based autonomous robotics. His work lies in the convergence of machine learning, control theory, robotic vision, heterogeneous robotic platforms. He has received more than 20 crores of research grants to support his research activities. The recent one being DST UKIERI International Grant. He has established industrial collaborations with TCS, Renault, Nissan, ADNOC, at Abu Dhabi, and many other places, while making significant technological development in varieties of areas in robotics and artificial intelligence, based on areas where robots are used in warehouse automation, vision and drone guided driver assistance system, drone guided pipeline inspection system, and many more. He has published more than 250 research papers, proceedings in many renowned international journals and conference proceedings. He is also a fellow of INAE and senior member of IEEE. And he's also one of the technical committee members on robotics. So we are extremely fortunate that Professor Behera has kindly agreed to share his wisdom with us. So the floor is open, Professor Behera. Okay, so this is a request from Professor Behera. He's just setting up his his computer. So due to some internet issues, so it will just take 2 more minutes. So I request all the participants to be present. So stay connected. So meanwhile, I can announce some of our future activities and what Institute for Science and Spirituality does. So So let me share my screen with all of you. So this is a session on science and spirituality in Bhagavad Gita, and afterwards we have many lined up activities under the aegis of issue for science and spirituality. So just a brief synopsis of what we are going to do in upcoming days. Uh, after this, just a minute. Yeah, there we go. So on 19th September, the next week, Mr. Mauricio Garrido, Dr. Mauricio Garrido from Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, Florida, in Gainesville. So he would be talking about kosas, the states of consciousness, Vedic sound, and intricate workings of the subtle body. On 26th September, Sanskrit and computational linguistics, the topic would be lectured by Professor Pavan Goyal from IIT Kharagpur. On 3rd October, we are fortunate to have with us Professor, I just cannot pronounce her name, he's from Russia, Professor Asel from Karangada Medical University, Russia. So he will be talking about different aspects of God from world religions, the prominent world religions. So he will be focusing on whether God is a person. So this is a key issue where different philosophies also differ even within our Hindu traditions. So he would be delving in this subject matter from varieties of philosophical and theological perspectives. And then afterwards, we are starting also a series of courses. It's basically art and science of practical spirituality. So the level 1 we already successfully completed, almost about to complete the first batch. So it's completing in October. Afterwards, the next batch for ASPS, as we call it, it would start. And the minimum criteria for the eligibility criteria for this course is the participants must be graduates in different disciplines of science, maths, and psychology, philosophy, etc. And of course, it's a serious study where not only will be discussing philosophies, but we'll be also talking varieties of aspects, how to actually practice spirituality from a practical point of view. So it would be a very enlightening series. I would just show you the registration link. Those who are interested, they can surely register for it. So this is the link, bit.ly asps1-October OCT. So those who are interested, they can note it down and they can fill in the Google form, and we'll accordingly form different batches and we'll contact you. And those who are in the SPS1, so they will move into SPS2, where we'll be discussing furthermore. So this is not the end of the story. We have many more series that is lined up. And as we did last year, we are organizing a conference called Jigyasa. So it's in December 18th and 19th. So the topic would be, the title is Matter, Mind and Consciousness, from Information to Meaning. So consciousness is always has been a elusive thing in the whole of scientific and philosophical quest for truth. And we really do not know how actually anything we see outside our world, how it translates to different meaning and experiences. So how that information translates to that. So all these aspects practically spans the whole of science, natural sciences like biology, physics, chemistry, and mathematics, psychology, cognitive science, and AI, and also theology and philosophy. It has been dealing with this from for thousands of years. So it would be a very unique event. We are expecting many big laureates in this field, including some Nobel laureates also. and some leading figures in this field. So stay tuned with us. Soon we'll release this event on our website. So in a day or two. So this is all I wanted to share with all of you. I think Professor Behera has already joined with us. So please, Professor Behera, please carry forward.
Okay, so welcome. I thank Jyotisha Prabhu and Prem Kishore for organizing this lecture series. And I welcome all the participants who are inquisitive to know about Bhagavad Gita. Today, I'm going to speak science and spirituality within Bhagavad Gita. So let me share my PPT and which one? This one? Paka. Okay. All right, so how do we see science and spirituality from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita? Is there a contradiction? There is a meeting point. It's a very big topic. You will see that how these two concepts can be looked at from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita. I will just look at, so what is science and spirituality? Science describes empirically collected data, right? Some form of experience, right? You collect data using atomic force microscope, you collect data using Hubble telescope, you collect data. Earlier people used to collect data, astronomical data, using simply bamboo stick. And so there are bamboo stick and lens and so forth. It has evolved and people are collecting data. And just like science deals with the data, so also spirituality deals with data. But that data is inner experience, experience beyond empirical data. Some of these data cannot be, or the pure spiritual experience is beyond measure of scientific equipments that we would like to talk about. So can there be meeting point between science and spirituality? Right. So this is something that people debate and say, science and spirituality. I have to tell you, there is a loggerhead between Christianity and science. But it's true also, there is, while there is, conflict between science and religion, there is also conflict within science and conflict within spirituality. So conflict is there in all domain of our existence. So just because there is a conflict between two distinct category, doesn't mean conflict doesn't exist within each category. Okay, scientists are loggerhead with each other, just like spiritualists are also loggerhead with each other. So that's the part of life. One should be matured enough to understand these conflicts in proper perspective. So now you see that what the common point. Science seeks truth, so also religion. Okay. Science builds a theory to describe data and rejects that very theory when new unexplainable data surfaces. This is a mistake. So, okay. When new unexplainable data surfaces, just like, quantum mechanics came because the classical mechanics could not explain the data that was observed in brick kilns. Brick kilns are the oldest form of technology where people would like to create a specific temperature within the oven for brick to solidify. And so when that data, black body radiation data came and classical mechanics could not explain, then we have this new science called quantum mechanics. Sorry, new theory as quantum mechanics. In spiritual tradition also, a seeker purifies his or her senses and collects data. So this is the distinction between spiritual tradition and scientific. Science uses external instrument, and spiritualists, they look for their internal senses to sense the data, purified senses to sense the data. And then he then deliberates some sastric model of reality based on such data. More refined his senses, better becomes his understanding of the reality. He naturally gives up his old notion and embraces new notion of the same target. Target is the spiritual truth or the absolute truth. In both tradition, what plays a big obstacle is the dogma. It is dogma that is the enemy of both science and spirituality. And science and spirituality can embrace hands to fight these dogmas, right? And dogmas are of different kinds. I am not here to speak about those dogmas. Like from Indian society, one of the dogma is the casteism. This very dogma that destroyed Indian society. And in science, one of the dogma is that only matter is the cause of everything that we experience. So these are all dogmas from both sides, and these dogmas impede the progress of both science and spirituality. We have to be very careful about it. There is a very famous verse. This verse is there in it is recited by Sutta Goswami in Naime Saranya, where he was speaking to 88,000 very terrific intellectuals, and he is saying, Aham hi prusto riyaman tavadvir achaksha atma bhagamutra yavan navaha patanti atma samam patatrinas tatha samam vishnu gati vipaschita. O rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, is addressing his 88,000 audience. I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. So the same thing is there in our literature, that once we cross a specific level of realization and attain a new level of realization, we do not make use of old realization. We go by the latest realization. Just like in science, when people throw the old theory and make use of new theory, same thing is here as well in spirituality. It's a fact. Nobody can say, I know the absolute truth as he is. That is a very condemning behavior of a spiritualist to say, I know the truth. We try to know the truth. We try to describe the truth. We can speak like this, but we cannot say, I can describe the truth. So this is a point philosophically, which is true, because nobody has been able to describe even an atom or a cell. So what to speak up to describe the truth completely? Nobody can do that. So everybody, according to one's realization. So this is spiritual tradition, and there is a material tradition, as it is empiric scientific tradition. So you see, whether it is science or spirituality, questions are same. Within science and within spirituality, we ask similar questions because they pertain to the same thing. What is the absolute truth? So if you look at the questions that we normally ask at a very high level, what is the basic building block of this universe? So you will get answer in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, chapter 13. You also get some answers in scientific literature, right? What is the difference between a living body and dead body? You get the answer from Bhagavad Gita 7.4, 5, 6, 13.6 and 7, and many other places as well in Bhagavad Gita. If the chemical origin of life is true, then why have we not successfully even creating a blade of grass? You will get the answer in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. What caused so much diversity in this universe? Chapter 14. Conscious we are, but what is that consciousness? How is it different from matter? It's a very deep topic, and it has been described in so many chapters in Bhagavad Gita, specifically chapter 2, chapter 9, 13, and 15. How is the divine plane different from the plane of mundane? Bhagavad Gita 15.6 and many other places are also, it is being described in Bhagavad Gita. Ultimately, what is absolute truth? In general, you find that answer from chapter 7 to 11, or I would say 12, and specifically chapter 9 talks about absolute truth completely. And chapter 7 to chapter 9 would explain to us how is everything is self-organized in this world, right? Every unit within our experience is a complete unit. For example, given a seed and a field, a nice tree manifests. It's complete. You don't have to, nobody, a farmer doesn't have to go to the laboratory and learn how to do genetic engineering before he can sow a seed and the seed would grow to a plant. No, it's so self-organized. When a man and a woman unite, a beautiful baby manifests. They don't have to understand either physiology or genetics or nervous system of a child, right? All the planetary systems are put into motion in a perfect manner which is beyond our comprehension. What is the science behind this apparent self-organized universe? So all these things are, when you ask, we also get answer as a spiritualist. Just like we try to find out some answer in botany, zoology, or biology, in chemistry and physics. And in various ways we try to find an answer. We also find answer spiritually. So you can look at these questions are common to both denominations. And if you say a scientist doesn't have this kind of question, cannot be a scientist. Similarly, a religionist, as somebody who says I'm a spiritualist and he doesn't know any of the answer to any of these questions. So he cannot be a spiritualist just because he's wearing dhoti, kurta, or a specific dress, apparel, whether it is Muslim apparel or Christian apparel or Hindu apparel, doesn't matter. Does he know this kind of question, answer to this kind of question? How much he has, how much understanding he has about these questions in depth? That would define the scientific temper of a scientist, so also a spiritual temper of a spiritualist. So this is what I would like to emphasize in the beginning. So I hope you are following what I'm saying. And so now what are the fundamentals? So if I have to go all these, and these are not the, I know I have picked up some questions, but there are thousands of such questions, and we cannot deliberate in 1 hour lecture. So 1 or 2 fundamental questions I will try to show you how science looked at it, how Bhagavad Gita looked at it, and how what is the final common meeting ground, how we can benefit each other. Okay, so this is very, very important. What are the fundamental building block of nature? One of the big questions of science, the question that goes back to at least 2,500 years to the ancient Greeks. Okay, so people started in the beginning with saying the periodic table, elements of periodic table. And then this theory was rejected. And then the theory came where 1 electron and 2 quarks became the basic building block of the universe. And then that was rejected. And then quantum field became another hypothesis, that quantum field eternally exists. This cannot be destroyed. Quantum field cannot be destroyed. And quantum field give rise to all elementary particles that combines and makes up very, very gross substance. And those gross substance at some mature state manifest living symptoms of cognition. So these are the theory in one end, right? So the question here is, do you know, can I say a quantum field is the basic building block of the universe? Nobody can say. In fact, in science, you cannot say this is correct. The moment you say, you are making a very cardinal mistake. Cardinal mistake. Nobody can say like that. So today, quantum field, tomorrow, something else would come. Just like David Tang. He said that in one of the keynote talk, that when we were teaching our children that periodic elements of periodic tables are the basic building block, in fact, we are telling them white lies. And this is the position of the science, so also the position of the spiritualist as well, right? So what must be the basic building block of this universe, right? Anything that we say it is a basic building block of the universe means that substance from which everything else comes. So that original substance must be eternal. And that substance must not have any origin. That which can exist independently. And this must have all the properties that are seen in the universe. And it must have properties that are not visible within this manifest universe. So this is just a hypothesis that I have given. What must be the basic building block of this universe, right? And I could write this hypothesis because I have been trained both in science as well as Bhagavad Gita. And you can easily see. So what is basic building block of the universe? Try to understand this. That means, what is that original substance that gives rise to everything, all varieties that we have in this world? Or not only within this visible world, that is world of vision, this is a visible world, also there is a world beyond our vision. So what is that substance? So we spiritualists are also interested. So also, from a scientific perspective, empiric science perspective, this is a question that we would like to answer. Now in Kathopanishad, there is this verse, Nityo Nityana. So Nitya means eternal. Nityana, among all eternal, is the foremost. Chetanas Chetanana. Among all conscious beings is the original conscious being. Eko Bahuna is originally one and became many. Yo Vidadhatikam. And he alone provides everybody's need. And you say, this refers to the absolute truth in Kathopanishad 2.2.30. And this is the, if you look at in Bhagavad Gita 7.4, when Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that please hear from me. How? By Maya Sakta Mana Partha Yogan Yunjan Padasra Asamsayam Samagramma Yatha Gyansasi Tatsudha. So basically, the absolute truth can be understood by hearing from him only. You want to know God, then approach God. That is what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita 7.1. And he's saying that I am going to now explain to you both phenomena and numina. Phenomena is my experience. Numina is the cause of that experience. So normally within science, we assume there is only inert matter, original, and we are looking for the form of that inert matter. That is very, very restricted assumption. So that is why I say the scientists will be greatly benefited if they start hearing what is there in Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, while explaining himself, he first says, we must understand his different energies. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These 8 different categories of energy. First, we have to understand these energies are not innate energies, they are semantic energy. They are active energy, they are not passive energy. And this is something that we don't understand within science. I'll explain to you why these are all passive, not passive energy, but active energy. And then Lord Krishna is explaining to us another category of energy. So this is the first 7.4. He's talking about the separated material energy. That means these are Krishna's energy, but they make us. They have the capacity to hide Krishna, right? So hide Krishna in the sense is not that they are powerful than Krishna. No, they can cover my consciousness. And that this particular creation is there such that those who do not want to dwell in truth, they can be peaceful within this 8 separated material energy categories. And then you and me. So that's why Krishna is saying, besides these almighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities for exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. That means this earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These categories of energies are being lauded, or these living entities. We are trying to lord over this material energy. And then here it says 7.6. All created beings have their source in these 2 natures. That means each one of us, we have 2 categories of nature. One is material nature, the other is spiritual nature. And all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and dissolution. So this is the basic building block. So that it is the absolute truth. His 2 categories of energy have manifested diversities of this material universe. And ultimately, Lord Krishna is saying in 7.7, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as poles are strung on a thread. So your original form of the basic building block is the absolute truth himself. There is no superior truth. So this is of course, you are hearing for the first time. These concepts will not percolate within your intelligence, in your psychic sphere. But you have to hear it, deliberate. You have to learn the science of Bhagavad Gita better in a systematic way. Then only you'll be able to benefit from it. Now, this question can come. How can we establish this truth? Lord Krishna is the original cause of all manifest and unmanifest universes. Krishna has described it. How can we establish? So if you look at it, scientists believe that there exists an original form of matter from which everything comes from. But Bhagavad Gita doesn't admit that. Bhagavad Gita talks about phenomenal world that consists of semantic elements. And these semantic elements have categories from the ignorant. Ignorant side is earth, water, and then slowly, knowledge becomes manifest as you go on the ladder. And finally, the intelligence becomes pure when you are at the level of soul. And then at the level of Krishna, the intelligence becomes absolute. So Krishna includes everything. So it is not possible to capture Krishna within an experiment, because to understand Krishna, even the experimental apparatus is within Krishna. So it is it's a puzzle that is very tough to break it. But empirically, one can possibly demonstrate that there exists no matter which can exist independent. We can also demonstrate within empiric science that matter doesn't have uh, 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 the matter, the search for matter, or search for that matter which gives rise to the varieties within this material world, doesn't exist. This can be empirically established. One of the very profound challenge for everyone who think that you want to contribute. So it is very important. Suppose you understand matter is not the cause of, or is the original cause of everything that is existing, then your world of truth would vary, would completely change. It will take an oceanic jump. So it is very important. Now, when we, of course, this basic building block, we can go on within Bhagavad Gita. So let's not only focus on that. Let's go to some more questions. What is the difference between a living body and dead body? Okay. So we were talking about basic building block. And according to the Vedanta, the basic building block is the absolute truth himself and is beyond any empiric science. So obviously you cannot capture it using empiric science. But what I said is that using empiric science, you can easily establish the first step to understand that Krishna is the absolute truth, is that matter is not the ultimate causal substance. Similarly, the other question that we normally try to ask is, what is the difference between a living body and dead body? Right? So this is a very favorite example. You can see how do you see a living organism and a machine. A living organism experiences hunger, fear, sleep, sexual desires, ahara, vaya, nidra, maithuna. These are all common to all living entities. So living body has all these traits. Whereas how sophisticated your AI machine can be, I don't think that you can instantiate hunger within the, if you are driving an autonomous car is not going to cry because it has run out of the fuel. Okay, you can program it and it may appear the car is crying, but you can't experience a car that is a current car or current any machine, AI machine, right? The power is gone, then all AI machine will become what is called defunct or kaput. And you bring in power again, they will be activated, right? So this is a self-replication. This is a trait of all living beings, living bodies. No self-replication machine. You cannot, purchase a new car and say, this new car will give you another new car. Will give you birth. Will give birth to a new car. Then you have a house, and that house will give birth to another house. So this doesn't happen. So you need to contemplate. Say, you want to come to Bhagavad Gita, that means you already have become philosophical. You are not accepting life is simply meant to eat well, sleep well, and enjoy well. That's not the life. Life means questioning. Questions regarding, just like the questions that I posed in the beginning. You can ask so many questions. And unless you start contemplating, ask questions, you'll not be a wise person. Okay. So we can build machines that may behave like, man, right? Like for example, a robot that can, if you give an order to the robot, give me these kind of items from the rack, and robot goes to the rack and gives you those items. So a robot is able to mimic a human being. So this is possible. We have done this in our laboratory. This is an experiment in our laboratory. Similarly, we can also do an experiment in our laboratory where we can teach a robot how to hit a ball. So these are things we are able to do. But these robots are not per se the living matter. Okay. For example, when 9/11 attack happened on America, 26/11 Mumbai attack happened, that shook the psyche of the entire world. And suppose, such AI machines are being gone down, I don't think people would cry. People would cry, right? So that means there is definitely a distinction between living matter and matter. So what has happened is, you say, just to give you a little more idea here also, when Columbia disaster happened in 2003, the entire world mourned for the 7 astronauts who were killed in that mishap. Brown, husband, Clark, Chawla, Anderson, McCool, Raman, they all were killed in that disaster. So, but nobody cried for this subtle space shuttle. Nobody cried for that. That is, it got destroyed. Although this particular machine must have, America must have invested some billions of dollars to build this machine, and net worth of these astronauts may be much less than what they spent on this Columbia shuttle. So what is that makes us to cry for these people, not for the Columbia disaster? That means there is a distinction between living matter and matter. Sooner we accept this, better we will become a scientist. So in Bhagavad Gita 2.13, Lord Krishna talks to Arjuna. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body, from baby to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So this verse is popular verse. So this is a first instructive verse that Krishna spoke to Arjuna, because Arjuna was lamenting that he is going to kill his grandsire Bhishma and his respected, esteemed, or revered teacher Drona. Whereas in the same Bhagavad Gita, in 13th chapter, it describes that the 5 great elements that we talked about, earth, water, air, fire, ether, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, 10 senses, mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, life symptoms, and conviction. All these are considered in summary to be field of activities and its attraction. So basically, this here, it says that they are not part of the soul. 2.13, it talks about the soul, which is eternal. And in 13.6 and 7, it talks about living matter. Doesn't talk about matter. In in our literature, in Vedanta, we don't refer to dead matter. For us, matter means cognitive matter. When I say living matter, it's a very unscientific way to speak about it, but it's better to say it's a cognitive matter. You see, like life symptoms. You are able to breathe, you are able to get up, you are able to sleep and wake up. These are all living symptoms, right? And they are not part of the soul. Conviction. You say, I'm a scientist, I'm a spiritualist, I am vegetarian, I am male, female, American, Indian. These are different convictions. And they are also not part of the soul. They are part of nature. Nature is inferior, and pure consciousness or soul is superior. So you see, the cognitive elements that we talk about, this concept is not there in science. Can we ask, or can scientists hear us and work upon these very ideas? Instead of speculating that the inert elements would combine together and give rise to a cognitive element, it is possible cognitive element has a different nature. We have to unravel the mystery of cognitive element. So there is material cognitive element and there is spiritual cognitive element. So these are all profound ideas. So that is why I always say science and spirituality, they should collaborate to advance. They should not be at loggerhead. And as I told you, dogmas are keeping both the field from progression. And we must fight jointly against all kinds of dogmas, whether be it in science, be it within spiritualism. So living entities, living body and dead body. I told you that how these are, there is a distinction. And now one thing that is being talked about nowadays, very much because of AI, is what is consciousness, right? You look at an animated video and, and the animated video can be completely computerized and they appear to be very real and have similar impact as much as a real scene may cause for a child. It appears, but there is no science behind it. And I personally believe such animated videos and real life scenarios will have different impact on the child. And we have not done studies on it. But because it has become very easy to control a child through cartoons, through animated videos, a lot of money has been put into such resources, such resource creation, without ever having to reflect upon the impact or deadly impact it has on children. It has actually, because of these influences, our children are becoming impaired in terms of their psychic, they have psychic disorders. So these are some of the things that I can go on, but let me tell you, because we do not understand what is consciousness, and we think the animated videos and cartoons, these are things that have similar impact on the children because we have no idea what is consciousness. And consciousness is the basis of existence, according to Bhagavad Gita. Without consciousness, nothing can exist. In fact, everything is a form of consciousness. And the rishis, they live in the Himalayan caves for millions of years before even they can dream to describe this subject or this element called consciousness. And without doing any such endeavor, we dread to describe this topic. And that is the biggest tragedy within this modern civilization. If you look at what is consciousness, in Bhagavad Gita 2.17, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, that which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Avinashi tu tad viddhi yena tatam idam sarva. So, that which pervades the entire body, avinashi. Something is pervading me. It's a very powerful concept. A lot of empirical scientific investigation can be done about it. And because we do not accept this consciousness as a fundamental entity, so our science, we cannot, of course, I understand that we cannot describe the consciousness in its pure form, but we can still describe consciousness in an empirical way, in using certain biomarkers. So this is something that is possible. That means science and spirituality can join together and do all these experiments. I'll skip this because already 6:30. What you see is a form of consciousness. So you see, what is consciousness? It's a very, very deep, because we all understand things based on our experience. Okay. So what is consciousness? You understand yourself by your experience at the level of senses and body. You feel you are different from matter because you have hunger, thirst, sexual attraction, fatigue. This is one level of consciousness. Then there is another level of experience, or another level of consciousness and experience you cannot separate. They are almost similar in the beginning. But when you become mature, then you can separate your consciousness from your lower level of experience, and your pure level of experience and the consciousness can become one and the same. So this is those who have practiced spiritual life, they can talk on these topics for hours and hours and hours. For example, an experience at the level of desire, happiness, distress, success, and failures. This is also some level of consciousness. Another level of experience of consciousness is Marxism, capitalism, Buddhism, Vedanta. And still, you have another level of consciousness or experience. You are an Indian, American, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, male, female, white, black, and so forth. And let me tell you, all these that I'm able to describe is lower level of consciousness. This consciousness can be studied within empiric science. Within empiric science. The consciousness that cannot be studied is the pure consciousness, Satchitananda. But these are necessary to study because the society is in strife because of ignorance, different level of ignorance. And hence, the consciousness must be studied within empiricism. And we have levels of consciousness. As I told you, there is inert matter, living matter, and pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, there are categories, khyara. These are, you cannot understand these concepts unless you understand what is Bhagavad Gita. But you see here in Bhagavad Gita 2.62 and 2.63, how Krishna explains the lower level of consciousness that is not the consciousness proper. Okay. So in 2.62, Lord Krishna is saying, while contemplating the object of senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. From lust, anger arises. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa, sangas te supudayate, sangat sanjayate, kamat krodha vijayate. From anger, complete delusion arises. From delusion, bewilderment, memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. Intelligence is lost. One falls down again into the material form. So you say, there are so many ways to understand different concepts of Bhagavad Gita within scientific paradigm. One of the paradigm is whole and part, right? So absolute truth is the complete whole, and parts must be aligned to the nature of the absolute truth. That means everything is part of the absolute truth. Everything is connected to that absolute truth. Nothing is separated from the absolute truth. When parts are not aligned, the complete whole still remains complete, while non-aligned or antagonistic parts become part of the illusory world. So this is the nature of the absolute truth when I talk about what is absolute truth. How do you answer that absolute truth? There is nothing beyond absolute truth. And that is why Krishna has to manifest Virata form to Arjuna to explain to us that everything is within him, right? And those who do not want to align with that absolute truth, then what happens? They are glanced onto the illusory energy of Krishna, which is just a Brahma or illusion. So that means, as of now, if I have not taken any step to understand the absolute truth, then mostly I am remaining in illusion. So while the complete whole is variegated, yet united in pure love, the illusory world is maintained by the laws of the absolute truth. And this is the nature of the absolute truth. And it is not that I have created these things. I am trying to bring it or extract it from Bhagavad Gita. And I'm trying to present to you by which you can understand. So, in this sense, empiric science has very little to contribute in terms of transcendental import. If you really want to bring in the transcendental topics using your words, you cannot do it. Because words, language, these are all of this world. You cannot bring them here. So what empiric science can do? Okay. So one of the things that we can do, or empiric science can be helped, is that in science and spirituality, if you look at science and we look at also spirituality, in both field, material behavior is paramount. Just like as a spiritualist, when I practice spiritual life, my behavior has to be proper according to certain paradigm. So the behavior of living bodies can be studied within empiricism, and that can help the entire human society. And we are trying to study, because we have sociology, economics, to understand market behavior, social behavior, such that we can make a proper plan for society to coexist in harmony and peace. Spiritualists also would like to see that their members, they also behave properly, they are happy. So you see that material behavior is a common focal point for both scientists as well as spiritualists. And here, the scientists, they can take the help of Bhagavad Gita in the form of understanding the role of sattva, mode of goodness. Because India as a country is known for perpetuating the family values for a long time. Now also in India, our family values is still very strong. When in 2005 I joined Bielefeld, a conference, one of the Jews from Israel, he embraced me and congratulated me, saying, "My dear friend from India, I congratulate you that you practiced organic farming." Although India has literally forgotten what is organic farming, all kudos to the Western imports. And so if you look at Indian way of life, it was centered around cow protection, organic farming, yoga, meditation, performing arts, studies in theology and Sanskrit. Okay, these are the ways how human values were inculcated. You see that whether it is Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King or any big leader, big social reformer, they would say education without character is meaningless. So unless we inculcate the human values, what is the use? As a spiritualist, we must, as a scientist, we must infuse these values. But there is a scientific way of infusing these values which were practiced in India for a long, long time. But we didn't make use of science to preserve those values. So it is time has come, probably. We must work on these traditions and bring out both in terms of empirical science and both in terms of spiritual goal, the common behavior. Similarly, if you look at science has been successful in describing inert data, right? But probably, science has failed to understand what is cognitive data. In fact, science doesn't know what is cognitive data. Psychology still is a very heuristic science. Psychology has not taken the shape of a science. Although there are many psychologists and psychiatrists they make a good living because of the psychic disorder, mental disorder in the society. But cognitive data, we don't understand what are their nature, how they should be coded, they should be acquired. Varieties of things we don't know. So, from an experienced practitioner of Bhagavad Gita, I can, give a proposal to scientists that let's start studying cognitive matter instead of inert matter. Can science transcend to empiric experiential data? Empiric experiential data. That is, I say, cognitive data. This is possible if we study the living matter without the rigid assumption that matter is the cause of semantic life. Because according to Bhagavad Gita, it is the consciousness that is the cause of everything. And Bhagavad Gita can guide us how to develop this new field of empiric science, the domain of living matter. So I'm throwing some of those things based on my own understanding, and I hope this discussion helped you to look at. Of course, there are so many things to be spoken. Given the time, I have only spoken this much. And of course, whatever I have spoken, this is an experience gained over last 28 to 30 years. So each one of you who is interested, unless you commit yourself, you cannot become either a scientist or a spiritualist. A committed person can become a scientist. So also a committed person can become a spiritualist. And there is no shortcut to any of these realms. So those who fight, they are neither scientists nor spiritualists. So according to me, there is no confusion as far as the motto of science and spirituality is concerned at the higher level of understanding. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Behera, for kindly enlightening us. It was such nice to hear you talking about your own decades of experience of practicing science and spirituality both. So it was very enlightening to hear from you. So now if the participants, they have some questions, 1-2 questions we can take. It's already 6:48, so maybe 1-2 questions you can take. And already that is a big question. So if I just rephrase it, so Vishal Pandey is saying that he opted for a course, biology and philosophy in IIT Kanpur perhaps, but then he, while interaction with his professors, so he got a bitter feeling that science is always seen at loggerheads with spirituality. So what?
Yeah, as I told you, it's a dogmas. It's a dogmas. Suppose your professor is trying to shut up you, it is his dogma. He is not open-minded. He is not a scientist. He is not. He has closed. He doesn't want to look at pertinent data. So dogmas have created. In fact, as I told you, these dogmas are there both within spiritualism as well as within science community. Within spiritual groups also, these dogmas. And when dogmas, they become prevalent, then science dies. So also the so-called spiritual group, they also die their natural death. So ultimately dogmas would destroy. So we should not be worried because they would be there, because this is the material world. In material world, majority would prophesize dogma. Then very few would vouch for truth. Next.
Another question by Rachayita Mukherjee. So she is asking, how did you practice Bhagavad Dharma for 30 years? So any suggestion for beginners or enthusiasts?
No, as I told you, commitment is the only trait. Whether you become successful as a businessman, as a teacher, as a spiritualist, as a scientist, it's a commitment. And there is no shortcut. And you may ask, how did I have this commitment? Because I enjoy this. I enjoy this. If I don't like something, I cannot be committed to that. So we like it. That is why.
Thank you. There is another question. Can a scientist through science attain liberation?
Why not? Bhaunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyante. Vasudevaha sarvamiti samatma sudurva. The point is that we are thinking, can I attain liberation in 5 months, 5 days, or even in this whole life? But for seeker of truth, whether you are a scientist or a spiritualist, life is a journey, eternal journey. So in that eternal journey, as long as my pursuit is to know the truth, at some point of time, I'll be made fortunate to know the truth. Otherwise, truth would not exist. Truth exists. That's why the pursuit of truth is the only thing that makes a man successful. Others are anyway unsuccessful. Yes, even a scientist can attain liberation through dogma-free science.
Okay, thank you, sir. Kasvi Watch, I cannot pronounce this, his name. So the question is, you explained consciousness very well, but to understand Krishna consciousness, there should be Bhagavad Kripa. I don't know what is the question he's asking. How to understand or make one understand?
Yeah, this is, I know, but that was not the topic today. Today's topic is, yes, the import of transcendence cannot be achieved by material endeavor. So the spiritual grace is necessary to know it, and that spiritual grace only keeps you going. So this is a deeper topic. I would not dwell now in this topic, in this particular topic. Yes.
There is a further question by Suhas De. So he's saying, you mentioned about periodic table is not fundamental building blocks of nature, but earth, water, fire, air, ether, and mind, intelligence, false ego constitute material energies. Can you please tell how they are combined to make each material element, starting from hydrogen, atomic number 1 onward?
Yes, the point here is that hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen together, you combine as many as ways, you cannot produce life. You cannot produce life. Okay? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, and soul and super soul together, they make a life. We want to explain what is the cognitive matter. So there, and this earth, water, air, fire, ether, it's not the way you are understanding. These are all cognitive element. Earth is a cognitive space carrying the aromas or smell. Then Smell means it has some meaning, because bad smell, good smell, it is not inert substance. It's a meaningful substance. Similarly, water is that element, or is another cognitive space that carries taste. So, these are all topics themselves to discuss. So all that I can say is that these components, they describe the living matter. They don't describe the inert matter. In our literature, we don't care for inert matter. Inert matter doesn't exist actually. Next.
I think we'll take this one last question. There are many more. Vipul Khender is asking, why do you think space exploration is getting so much of funding despite its direct applicability to mankind? So,
you see that always the human consciousness is so advanced that they would like to break the barrier. That is the nature of human consciousness. But unfortunately, we are trying to break the material, so-called material barrier. Human consciousness is meant, yes, we can explore the space, but let us explore the space not using the material spacecraft, but using cognitive spacecraft. It is possible, these are topics they themselves. So when you don't have proper knowledge, then you do the same thing in a wrong manner. And I would say this is the same thing happening. But the space exploration is not a bad idea. But proper space exploration is a good idea. Why our education system is still teaching us Darwin theory, which does not make any sense? You have to ask the educators. I'm not the boss of this. So anyway, let me tell you, as of now, the science that you study, I study, has come from an alien background. That alien background is not exactly according to our lifestyle or Vedic lifestyle. But simultaneously, Srila Prabhupada gave credit to science because the empirical science demonstrated there is a subtle nature behind the naive experience, or subtle, just like you see a wall and the scientists don't see the wall the way you see the wall. They see the wall in terms of dancing molecules, let's say. So this idea of looking for subtle cause behind a manifestation, that credit must go to the science. So, but then science is a crossroad because of lack of goodness. Science has not become as creative as it should be because of lack of goodness. So it is very important that we have to, because we know how can goodness be made use of and bring out the beauty of goodness through scientific research and improve the quality of life. So this should be the, instead of criticizing science, look at what good it has and what good we have. How can we combine that and we take this forward? That would be my approach. So I think we should end here, Jyotishwar.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much for such enlightening answers. We'll end the discussion over here. So it's already 7. So thank you very much, Professor Laxmidhar Behera, and also all the participants for kindly and attentively hearing this discourse. So just few announcements. Let me share my screen for future events. So I announced in the very beginning that we are having further sessions on 19th September, next Sunday, by Dr. Mauricio Garrido from Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, Florida. So he will be talking about different states of consciousness and Vedic sound. And then on 26th September, Professor Pawan Goyal from IIT Kharagpur. So he will talk about Sanskrit and computational linguistics. On 3rd October, Professor Asel from Karangada Medical University, Russia. So he will be talking on Is God a Person? Basically reflections from different world religions. So now here is a course, 3 months course. The first batch is over, getting over in this October. So it's intended for those who just do not want to, not just simply satisfied with simple philosophical inquiries only. They want to practice spirituality seriously, and they want to know the relation between science and spirituality more. So it's a dedicated course where we're discussing different facets of science and spirituality, dialogues. There will be discussion on Swadhyay, open heart question answers, sadhana, sadachar, all these things. We call it 5 P's. So it's a part of art and science of practical spirituality. Those who are interested, they can surely register for this course. So I'm just typing the chat box. So you can just fill in the Google form and we'll accordingly make different batches. You can join. The first orientation class would start from October 3rd. And then we have an international conference that we are planning. It's in December, 18, 19 of December. So the discussion will be on matter, mind, and consciousness, from information to meaning. So there are also many more sessions that's coming. So stay connected with ISS. And those who want to watch previous sessions, you can visit our YouTube channel and watch previous discussions that we had. And also we have upcoming sessions. You can register for them. It's all free of cost. So thank you very much for your kind attention. And and of course, if any of you have any questions regarding ISS, you can surely ask. So I'll try to answer. Else, you can disperse.